The Basement, or Eyes in the Basement by David Myers, 2012. I got the phone call in the early morning of October 8th. I was still asleep and didn't answer on the first couple of rings. I finally rolled over in my bed and answered it on the fifth ring. Hello? I said in a groggy, sleepy voice. Is this Sam Darren? Yeah. Sam, this is Bob Finch. I know you don't know who I am or what I'm calling about, but are you busy right now? No. No, I'm not busy right now. What's up? I got your business card from Neil. I was calling you in regards to a possible job I need done. Neil recommended you because you did such an excellent job repainting his house. Oh yeah, Neil, I remember that job. I said and sat up in my bed. Well, that clears up what I'm calling about then. I have a job I need done as soon as possible. How is your schedule looking? Do you have a lot of clients now? No, my schedule is pretty open right now. I'm available as soon as you want me. Okay. That's just what I wanted to hear. Can I see you at 3 p.m. today? Yeah, no problem. Good. That's just what I wanted to hear. I'm going to switch you over to my secretary now. She's going to give you the address. Hope to see you soon. I grabbed a pen and pad off my nightstand and listened as his secretary gave me the address, and I wrote it down. I hung up the phone a minute later and got up and walked to my bathroom. I took a shower and got my clothes out so I could iron and press my shirt and slacks. I thought to myself, thank God, another job, right when I needed it. I couldn't ask for nothing more. I'm sure you're wondering by now what I do for an occupation. I'm a commercial painter. I have been painting for 15 years. It's hard finding work sometimes in this field. Sometimes I have my hands full with clients, and other times I can't find work anywhere. But I love to paint. I've always loved to paint. It's something about rolling that new paint over old dirty wall that gives me a good feeling inside. I took a lot of pride in my work and work hard at perfection. I make sure that this is not even a tiny speck of paint in the wrong place. Since I am an independent contractor, my prices for a typical job are very reasonable. I usually charge by the size of the job, and the amount of paint I need is included in the price. I remember the job I did for Neil as I ran the iron over my dress shirt. He had me paint the interior and exterior of the new garage he had built about a month ago. I did a really good job, and I worked hard for long hours to get the paint just right. Neil was so pleased when I had finished the job. He had offered me a bonus on top of my regular price. I took it and thanked him. He said he would recommend me to his friends if they had work available. I thanked him for that too, but in the back of my mind, didn't think he would do it so fast. Well, count your blessings, because when it rains, it pours, and I needed the money. I finished with my clothes and put them on. I took one good look in the mirror to make sure everything looked okay. My brown hair was a little messy, so I ran a wet comb through it quickly to straighten it out. There, I look fine now, ready for business. I arrived at the job at 2:45 p.m. It's always good to show up to a job early. It shows that you are a dedicated person to being prompt and on time. It sets a good impression. I looked around at the surroundings as I got out my car. It was a small warehouse, had a brick exterior and a loading dock against the side of it. It had a couple of small trucks that were loading and unloading at the dock station. I could hear the familiar sound of forklifts and men's voices as they worked, loading and unloading the trucks. I walked toward the front entrance of the building. It had a glass door. I grabbed the handle and opened the door. A small bell on the door jingled as I entered the lobby. It was a small lobby. It had 4 chairs lined up against the wall and a small coffee table with some magazines scattered across it. A desk sat close to another back door. John's secretary, I presume, sat behind the desk typing on the small computer. She stopped and looked up at me. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Yes, I'm Sam Darren, the painter. I have a 3 o'clock appointment with Bob Pinch." I said, trying to sound as professional as I could. I was never a good speaking business type man. I specialized more in my work, and small talk and conversation was never one of my good attributes in life. She smiled and said, "Oh yes, Mr. Darren. Please have a seat. I will let Bob know who you are." "No, you are here, I'm sorry." I sat down in the chair I was closest to and folded my hands together in my lap. I was feeling a little nervous. I hated waiting. Waiting to me just builds anticipation, and that can make you even more nervous. I tried not thinking about anything. What would I say? What if I started stuttering and didn't get the job? What if he didn't like my first impression? I tried to clear my mind and force the thoughts out of it, but I couldn't. They kept bombarding me and making me even more nervous. Probably one of the reasons why I seek perfection at every job I do is I'm a bit obsessive. And with obsession comes a mind that has thoughts that overrun it. Wish I had an off switch for nervous thoughts running wild, but I don't. Instead, I started twitching my foot. That was a habit I picked up when I'm nervous. The secretary didn't notice. She was just busy dialing Bob Pinch extensions. She waited a few seconds on the phone, and then he must have picked up. "Yes, Mr. Pinch, your 3 o'clock appointment is here for you." She paused for a second, listening to his response, then hung up the receiver. "He will be with you shortly," she said. She looked at me. Did she see my nervous legs twitch? Is she noticing it? What is she thinking? I thought. But she didn't seem to notice anything and went back to working on her computer. I was overreacting as usual. Overreacting from being nervous. Just relax, I told myself. The minutes slowly crept by. It had only been about 4 minutes had passed, but it seemed to me like an hour. Finally, I heard footsteps as someone approached the back door behind the secretary desk. I sat up straight in my chair. My palms were beginning to sweat. I wiped them on my pants leg. I knew I would have to handshake. I didn't want my hands to be too clammy. Too clammy meant you was too nervous about getting the job. I wanted to seem confident. The door opened, and a short, white man with glasses walked through it. He barely even glanced at me. He walked over to his secretary and said something under his breath to her. She nodded and looked in my direction and nodded her head. He turned and looked at me. I could tell by his gaze that he was sizing me up and noting a first impression. He made a small, casual smile, then began to walk over to me. I stood up out of my seat and put the magazine that I picked up down. I haven't even looked at it when I was sitting. I hope my palms were not sweaty. I reached out his hand to shake mine. I reached out my hand to shake his as he approached me. I grasped his hand and gave him a firm shake. "Sam Darren?" he asked, and I nodded my head in acknowledgement. He continued, "I'm Bob Thornton." He released my hand from the handshake. "Well, let's go back to my office and talk." He turned around and faced his secretary. "Shirley, hold my calls till I'm done talking with Sam." "No problem, Mr. Thornton." He turned back to me and signaled with his head to follow him. I walked behind him to the door he had come out earlier. He opened the door and I walked into a long hallway. It had a small bulletin board on one side, and it was cluttered with papers and invoices. I also saw the state minimum wage poster posted next to it. The hallway had a old office smell to it. The building must have been at least 15 years old, my estimate. I heard forklifts outside backing up and moving around, probably unloading the daily inventory. We reached a line of small doors near the end of the corridor. Bob opened the door that had his name on a gold plaque on it. It said, "Bob Pence, Officer Manager." He walked in and I followed. I went around to the chair behind a wooden desk. I closed the door behind me and he pointed for me to sit in the chair in front of his desk. I'm sorry, back that up. He went around to his chair behind a wooden desk, not me. I closed the door behind me and he pointed for me to sit in a chair in front of his desk. He pulled out a small folder and looked over some papers inside. I sat in the chair and looked around the office as he looked through the papers. I saw another small coffee maker sitting on top of a file cabinet. I also saw some of his family pictures, wife and daughter, and some nice picture frames. He stopped looking through his papers and looked up at me. "Sam, don't need to waste your time with small talk. I got a job for you to do. And if you want to know if you're interested, and I want to know if you're interested, I'm sorry. I heard how good you are from Neil, like we talked about. I have a basement in this office building our company bought last week. It's a pretty big job. Lots of nicks and crannies to get to. Are you busy with anything else right now?" "No, I'm free to start whenever," I said. I didn't want to sound too anxious, but I also wanted him to know I'm a hard worker. Neil already got pretty much sold him that I was a man for the job, so I don't have to say much. Good. We need to get the job done by this Friday. I trust you have all your equipment. We have the paint already. I'm going out on a limb here, but Neil says you're good and the right man for the job, so I'm going to trust his judgment." "Yes, sir, you won't be disappointed," I said. "Well, that does it then. You're hired. We will discuss the pay when we take a look at the basement first." He stood, backed up, and shook my hand again. I saw a small flicker in his eyes. What was that? It looked like fear. It couldn't be fear. Maybe my imagination. He glanced away quickly, and the flicker was gone as soon as it came. He gestured toward the door, and I followed him as we exited his office. He led me back down the hallway and back toward the lobby. He opened the door to the lobby and walked toward the entrance. Shirley looked up from the computer, his secretary. She was typing something on. He opened the front entrance door and turned back to Shirley. Shirley, Sam and I are going to take a look at the site. I will be back in about 20 minutes. She nodded her head in acknowledgement and walked outside into the fresh morning air. I saw the forklift I had earlier stop by with the load on it. The rider nodded at Bob and said, "Good morning, Mr. Pinch." "Good morning, Todd. How are you doing today?" "Not bad. Finished off that whole truck. Started another one now," Todd said and sniffled. He wiped his nose on his sleeve. Good. Well, don't let me hold you up." Todd nodded his head and started moving the forklift in the direction he was headed before he had stopped. Bob turned toward me. "Guess you're wondering what we do here. Well, we're in the computer business, mainly just shipping. We load smaller loads into the trucks and ship them where they need to go. Come with me this way." He pointed at a small gray building across the street from where we were standing. All of a sudden, a chill ran up my spine as I looked at the building. Let me rephrase that. He turned and headed toward a small gray building across the street. All of a sudden, a chill ran up my spine as I looked at the building. Something was wrong. Something was not right here. I had to leave. I have to leave now. I thought of just walking to my car and driving off without saying anything, but I couldn't. I needed the money. Isn't it always that way? You do things you don't want to when you need money, and my bills are not getting any smaller. I'm probably just feeling a little anxious about doing this job, that's all. But as I looked at the gray building across the street, I knew in my heart there was more to it than that. I was in denial. Something was wrong, and I knew it, but I didn't want to think about it. I ignored and pushed that thought away. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. We started to walk toward the gray building. As we approached it, it almost felt like it was alive and breathing, towering high in the sky, reaching out to me to swallow me alive. Bob seemed unaware of this madness and kept talking. "This business we do has started to grow, growing so large that we need more space. The building we are going to now was vacant a few months ago. We decided to buy the property and use it for our larger inventory. This company out of France owned it. They didn't even give us a high price for it. We practically took it off their hands for pennies. What a deal. I don't know why they're so eager to get rid of it. And I thought there has to be some catch involved. There wasn't any catch. It was a hell of a deal, except..." He stopped because we had reached the front entrance. He pulled out a set of keys from his pocket and unlocked the front entry door. The door opened slowly. It was pitch black inside. The air had a weird, sweet smell to it, hard to describe. I hadn't smelled anything like it before. Maybe similar to mustard mixed with honey. Bob reached inside and flicked on a light switch. The building overhead lights came on. Some of them paused in their sequence and flickered, but came on eventually. I was looking at the inside of a huge, dusty warehouse. I could tell by the looks of it, it hadn't been used in years. I'm making some corrections. Hold on. Used in a while. Because I just said couple months. I need to correct this while I'm talking to you. Bob motioned me inside. I couldn't move. For a second I stood there, frozen in the entryway, looking in. Bob motioned again, this time with a little frustration in his eyes. I was finally able to put one foot over the threshold and enter the building. My footsteps had a hollow echo on the cement floor of the building. I could hear the wind echoing outside. Even with all the lights on, I was still spooked. I didn't know why. Why was I so scared? It's just an empty warehouse with the lights on. It wasn't dark at all. You could see every corner and every area. What's wrong with me? Bob walked around me and shut the entry door behind us. I turned back to him and asked, "You said you got a hell of a deal, except... Well, come with me. I'll show you," Bob said and walked in front of me. I followed him to the back of the warehouse. The back had an old wooden door in a corner. This here is the basement. I don't know why they would have a basement in a warehouse. Still asking myself that question. Maybe just a place to store extra goods is all I can come up with. He pulled out his keys again, found a different key, and inserted it into the lock on the door. The doorknob creaked a little as he turned it. It seemed that maybe the building had shifted in its foundations, because when he pushed the door forward, it was almost hard for him to move it. The bottom of the door scraped against the floor. The scraping sound made an echo in the empty warehouse like nails on a chalkboard. I jumped at the noise. Bob caught the jump at out of the corner of his eyes. "What's the matter? You're not scared?" Bob asked me. "No, it's just that echo. I didn't think it would be that loud." "Oh, come on, man. You got to see this." It was pitch black inside the doorway, just like the warehouse when we had entered it. Bob did the same as he had done before. He reached for the light switch and the fluorescent lights came slowly on, chasing away the darkness. I saw a small flight of stairs, maybe 20, before we reached the basement floor. Bob shuffled down the stairs and I followed behind him. The smell I had smelt earlier was strong now, and wait a minute, it sounded like a small hum was coming from down here. Was it coming from the overhead lights? I looked up at them, but they didn't seem to be producing this noise. Where was it coming from? As soon as the sound had started, it stopped. Was I hearing things? I rubbed my ears. Bob glanced at me with a puzzled look. "You sure you're okay?" "Yeah." Bob turned back around and walked forward. I followed behind him a few feet, then he stopped. I saw him look toward the back wall of the basement, and I followed his gaze with my own. My God! I thought. The back wall of the basement had graffiti artwork covering the entire wall. It was graffiti different from what I had ever seen in my entire life. Monstrous faces with horns and eyes everywhere. Multiple colorful faces, some in laughter, some in anguish. But what really stood out was the eyes. The eyes everywhere looked alive. It was almost as if they were staring right at you, hypnotizing you. You could feel the insanity in them. They say the eyes are the light to the soul. And what I saw in those painted eyes was evil. I began to sweat. I tried to tear my vision away, but I couldn't. Panic's cold hand touched my spine, mixed with fear. The eyes were piercing my soul, screaming insane thoughts in my mind. I wanted to kill myself in that moment. Kill myself and end it all. I never thought about suicide in my life till this moment. Can a painting make you go mad? Is there power in the eyes that drives somebody insane? I wanted to run. Run as fast and as far as I could, but I couldn't move. My feet and legs felt like jelly. Please, please, please let me look away. Bob spoke. Crazy graffiti, ain't it? Looks like some kids broke in here maybe around a couple days back and messed up the place. I snapped out of my trance as soon as I heard Bob's voice. It almost felt like I wasn't even in a trance at all. I asked myself again, what's wrong with you? The graffiti wasn't alive. The eyes were not piercing my soul. It was just normal graffiti on the basement wall. Nothing special. It actually looked pretty silly. Maybe some young kids with a couple spray cans did it. The magic I saw earlier was gone. Bob didn't seem to notice. He didn't even flinch when he showed me the graffiti when we first started looking at it. It was almost as if he was totally unaffected by it. This made me question my own sanity. Am I going crazy? Am I? Bob didn't notice anything. Why did I? Or did I see anything? This was the worst feeling I felt in my life. Not being able to think you can trust your own mind. So I did what felt right. I blacked out the memory. I was in denial that it ever happened. Maybe just something I ate this morning. I'd been feeling strange all morning. So, it's not a big job, but we needed to have the whole basement, including this wall, painted by next week. We got a large shipment coming in, and we want to make sure we can use this space for extra storage. I don't want some of the guys coming down here and getting spooked by these drawings and then not coming to work no more. I don't scare easily, not the superstitious type, but I can see how these drawings might freak somebody out. All these eyes and such. I swallowed and tried to clear my throat to answer him. Yeah. So when do you think you can get started? Bob asked. Oh, I can get started today. If you want, I answered. Good. I love enthusiasm, and I have a good feeling about you when I first met you. I know that you're the right man for the job. How long do you think it will take to repaint it? Oh, not long. Maybe 3 days at the most. Sounds good. Well, I got to go back to the office. Come on. Bob said, and he turned and walked back toward the stairs. We walked up the stairs together. I kept feeling those eyes staring heat onto my back. I told myself not to look back, not to turn around, but I had to. The temptation overwhelmed me. One last look. One last peek. I turned my head around slowly, my imagination playing scenarios through my mind. Those horrible faces and eyes would be alive, staring deep into my soul, piercing my logic mind and turning all my thoughts insane. But nothing was there. Nothing was there. The graffiti was still there, but no magical evil eyes. And the faces was not alive. It looked like some crude, cheap drawings. What was wrong with me? It must have been something I ate. I turned back around and followed Bob through the door. He closed and locked the door behind me. So I'm going to give you this key, Bob said. He reached in his slap pockets and pulled out one bronze-colored key and handed it over to me. Hold on to that. It's my only copy right now. I'll put it on my own personal set of keys. I slid the key onto my key ring along with my other key. Bob watched me do this for a second and looked up to my face. Well, any questions? No, I'm good. I got my equipment out in my truck, so I'll get started ASAP. We walked to the outer door of the warehouse and exited outside into the bright sunlight. Both of us had to squint our eyes at first to let our eyes adjust from the dark gloom of the empty warehouse to the bright sunny day outside. Bob pulled out some sunglasses and put them on. Nice sunny day, he said. He turned to face me. Well, I gotta be going. I got a lot of invoices to work on. If you need me or have problems, you know where to find me. He turned to walk in the direction of the office. He stopped short about 5 or 6 steps and turned back toward me. And remember, keep this job between me and you, like I asked before. Don't want any employees spooked about that old graffiti. Discretion is my middle name. Don't worry about it, I said back to him and nodded. A little bit of ass kissing helps sometimes, especially if you get a bonus for a job. Bob smiled a small smile, then turned back and walked off. I let out a sigh of relief. I was alone now. I could think and analyze my situation more clearly. Now that I thought about the whole thing, it seemed really silly. My mind couldn't process why I was so scared. So I rationalized that I wasn't scared. I told myself not to dwell on a situation I couldn't logically explain. Why worry? It doesn't solve anything. I focused my mind off the situation and tried to focus on my mind on more pleasant things. We walked up. Okay. Sorry, I had a little mess up on my writing here. Just think about the paycheck and think about all my bills paying off. I walked to my work truck, parked in front of the building, and pulled down the rear gate. It creaked and slammed down. It was an older work truck and had some rust, dirt, and dent in the bedding. I started to pull out my painting tools. Most of the tools had been used on previous jobs and had splatters of paint on the handle. The brushes were clean. I made sure of that before I started any new job. I pulled out all the stuff I needed for the job, closed the rear gate to my truck, and picked up my tools. I headed back toward the empty warehouse. I entered the empty lobby area. It was so eerily quiet in here when I was alone. My palms started to sweat again. Don't get nervous. Just get this job done quickly and get paid. I walked back toward the closed door to the basement. I saw something scurry past me out the corner of my eye. I jumped and screamed, dropped most of my tools. A small, beady rat sat 10 feet away from me. You little sucker. You little bitch, I thought. You just scared the hell out of me. I yelled at it. It opened its mouth and showed its teeth. Was that a grin? Was it laughing at me? Whatever it was, it didn't seem afraid of my voice. I grabbed the tools from the floor as it watched me. When I grabbed all my tools, I lunged toward the rat. It turned and ran away from me. "Yeah, you running now," I yelled at it. It continued to scurry away toward a small dark hole next to the loading docks. It stopped short of the run when it was safely in front of the hole and looked back at me, its beady eyes gleaming in the dark, deserted warehouse. It grinned a evil smile one last time as if saying, "You're too slow for me, old man, and soon you will be dead." What? Where did that thought come from? I thought. The rat turned and disappeared into the hole. Did the rat just speak to me in my mind? I asked myself. Couldn't be. That's crazy talk. And you're not crazy. But with all this stuff happening today, I wondered if I was wrong. I turned back into the direction of the basement door. I walked over to the door and removed the key out of my pocket. I moved my hand to insert the key and realized I couldn't. My hands were trembling again. What the fuck is wrong with me, man? Get a hold of yourself. There's nothing down there but an empty basement and some old bad graffiti. I forced my hand to stop shaking and inserted the key into the lock. I opened the door. It creaked on its hinges. Evil, fearful images of those painted faces rushed through my mind. I was terrified to go in there, but I was in denial. What if those painted faces were alive? What if those evil, hideous eyes looked at me again, piercing my soul? What if the horrible, sharp teeth came alive and come off the wall to devour me? Nonsense. I flicked on the light switch and shuffled down the stairs. For a minute, I couldn't look up. So I stopped in my tracks and forced myself to look at the back wall of graffiti once more. I let out a sigh of relief. The eyes were not alive. The faces looked old and silly. I laughed at myself. My laugh echoed off the walls and sounded eerie, almost insane. I didn't care. I was just glad that this painting was nothing more than some crude graffiti on a basement wall. I opened up my toolbox and began to assemble my rollers and brushes. I removed the masking tape I used to cover any splatters on the edges and corner and laid it outside. I also began to spread out a plastic tarp I used so no paint spatters would hit the floor. Okay, all my tools are here and ready to start. My cell phone rang in my pocket. Its shrill ring scared me and made me jump. Gotta stop getting spooked, I told myself. But my nerves were bad from earlier. I pulled my cell phone out of my pocket on the third ring. It was my girlfriend, Emily, calling, and I clicked and answered the button and put the phone to my ear. "Hey, babe," I said. "Hey, babe, I was just thinking about you," she said. I heard some paper shuffling in the background. She was still at work. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah, why?" I asked back. "I don't know, I just had this strange feeling that something was wrong with you. I'm glad you're okay." "Yeah, I just landed this new job today." "Oh? That's great. We can go out tonight and celebrate," she said. Her voice had some excitement in it. I had been with Emily for a couple years now. We had an up and down kind of relationship. She was constantly pestering me to get a regular paycheck instead of doing contract jobs here and there. I promised her I would settle for a stable job one day. I squashed her hopes that this would be that day. "Not a big job. Should be finished in a couple of days," I said. She was quiet for a minute and I waited for a response. "When are you going to get a real job?" "Emily, we already discussed this. I will soon." "Have you been looking?" "Not yet, but this job should be a big payoff." She let out a sigh. I could hear disappointment in it. I mean, aren't you happy I found some work again? My bills were adding up, and you know I hate to ask to borrow money. I'm glad that this job came through for me at the right time. It's kind of strange job, but the money will be good. Strange? She asked. Her curiosity overcome her disappointment. Curiosity can be the woman's weakest nature in some circles. Well, the job is just repainting the basement in an empty warehouse. How is that strange? She asked. Well, the back wall of the basement has all this weird graffiti on it. Lots of evil looking faces with sharp teeth and the eyes. What about the eyes? Nothing. They just, they look scary, that's all. Oh, come on, Sam, really? Don't tell me you're scared of some painted eyeballs. I'm not scared. I'm just saying they look scary, I said, trying to hide the fear in my voice and swallow the lump in my throat. Truth is, those eyes did scare me. Scared the shit out of me. But I was in denial. I also am not going to let her know I was scared. I had to be macho. Well, who you think did it? Wait, I know, probably some teenagers. They must have broke in and was high on acid and painted the wall. No big deal. Now, do you think some amateur doped up teenagers did this? Looks more professional. How you know? You never once went with me to the art gallery, she said. You said art was boring, remember? Whatever, I replied. This is different. Well, before you paint over it, why don't you take a picture of it and send it to my cell phone? I want to see it. I don't think that's a good idea. I was told not to tell anybody about it, and I'm already telling you. Oh, please. I do that thing you like tonight when you get off of work, she said in a seductive whisper. Get out of here, man. That's not going to work this time, I said. But I could feel my dick getting hard in my pants. I couldn't believe it. Why was I thinking about sex after this crazy day? I guess a man's urge for sex never falters, no matter what the circumstances, I thought. I knew she was going to win. I knew I would give in, but I wanted to hear her promise and beg a little more. Even though a woman's promise for sex can change in a minute, especially if the mood has changed or you have said the wrong thing, but still, I like to hear it from her lips. Come on. I promise I will do it, and I will let you tie me up. Please. My dick shot rock hard at that statement. I like the thrill of a woman being totally submitted in the bedroom. It was freaky. Okay, fine. I'm gonna send a pic, but promise me you'll keep it to yourself. Yay! Okay, I promise, she said. But the words didn't sound sincere. I didn't care. All I was thinking about was her naked, sexy body tied to my bed. Okay, well, I'll see. Well, I love you, and I will see you tonight. I love you too, Sam, she said and hung up. I took my cell phone and scrolled through the menu to the camera application. I clicked on the icon on the screen on the phone, lit up the display. I aimed the camera phone at the graffiti wall. All of a sudden, my hand that was holding the phone started trembling. I couldn't keep it still. Fear crawled up the back of my spine again. The drawings were alive. The eyes looked at me. The faces laughed hideously at me. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move, but my hands were still shaking. It was as if the graffiti was breathing in and out, taking away parts of my soul, then blowing the parts back to me mangled and dirty. Then as soon as the feeling came, it passed, just like before. Don't take the picture. Don't take the picture. Just repaint the walls and don't take the picture. But I went against that voice in my head. Partly because I didn't want to believe that there was nothing there. Partly because I wanted someone else to see and say that it was nothing. Nothing but a dirty wall with cheap graffiti in the basement. I wanted to hear them say to me, it's nothing. Then I could sit back a few days from now with my money and laugh. I could forget about this whole experience within a week, maybe a month. I held my cell phone steady now. My hand did not shake. Even though the overhead light was dim in the basement, I was fortunate. My cell phone camera had a flash. I pushed my finger on the take button and took the picture. At first, nothing happened. I thought maybe my finger didn't push hard enough. I tried a second time. Hold up, I just lost my place. This time my cell phone produced a flash, a familiar click noise that the picture had been taken. I looked at the image on my phone and I didn't understand. The image was completely dark. I know the flash should work, so why no image? I thought. Then I blinked, and just like that, the image appeared. Strange. Oh well, I'm not gonna think or worry myself about it, I thought. I loaded up my contacts and scrolled to my girlfriend Emily's name. I created a text message and added the picture to the message. Well, here goes nothing, I thought. I pushed the send button and the cell phone started to send the pic. Stop it. You gotta stop it before it reaches 100%. You still got a chance. Stop it. Then erase it from your phone memory. But I didn't stop it. I put the phone down and started getting my tools ready for the job. The paint cans that Bob had left for me were easy to open. It was a light grayish color paint, not a loud color, standard wall paint. I poured the paint into the roller tray, taped off the corners and edges of the wall, and dipped the roller into the paint. I put the paint dip roller against the surface of the graffiti wall. I almost expected something strange to happen. My muscles had tensed up, as if expecting an electrical shock or something. Nothing happened. A feeling of relief filled me. I started to roll the paint on the wall, erasing the eyes and the hideous faces forever. Or so I thought. End of chapter 1. Come back to me for chapter 2. Tell me what you think so far. It's 11 pages out of 35. So we got about 3-4 more chapters of this short story. Alright, signing off. Basement chapter 2. I was about halfway done with the back wall, about an hour later, when I heard the door to the basement open. I turned around to see who it was. Bob stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at my work. I see you already got started. That's good. I was just coming by to check on you before I headed out. I got a large order to take care of across town and won't be back till the end of the day. I will catch up with you tomorrow. Is that okay? It'll be fine, I said. Good. Well, the key I gave you also fits the lock to the entrance door. They will be finishing up in the other warehouse around 5 p.m. So just lock it up around the time and I will see you tomorrow. Okay, man, that sounds good, I said. Continue to roll the paint onto the wall. The paint covered another set of evil, twisted eyes. I was feeling better and better now that the graffiti was disappearing from my vision. The quicker, the better, I thought. I heard Bob close the door behind me. I worked quietly through the remaining hours of the day. I had finished up painting over about 75% of the graffiti when I looked at my watch. 4:45 p.m. Damn, how the time had flown by. I lost track of it. I was so consumed and focused on my work, I didn't see what time it was. I packed up my tools, headed up the basement steps, switched off the lights, and exited out the door. I found the key on my keychain in the dim lights of the empty warehouse and locked the basement door. All of a sudden, I felt like somebody was watching me. I could feel the heat of a cold stare on the back of my neck. I spun around real quick and saw that rat. That ugly rat. The same one I'd seen earlier sitting 10 feet away from me. It lifted its nose in the air and sniffed at me. "Get out of here," I yelled. Startled by my loud yell, it looked at me and ran. It scampered into the hole that it came from. Its ugly, pink, hairless tail twisting in the air outside the hole for a second, then it disappeared. Rat poison, I thought. I could bring some rat poison tomorrow. Normally I stick to my own business, but there was something about that rat. Something I didn't like. I hated it. I hated its beady eyes looking at me. I wanted it dead. I wanted to kill it. "I'll take care of you tomorrow," I spoke into the darkness. It was still spooky hearing my voice echo off the walls of the empty warehouse. It had an insane sound to it, almost as if I had stepped into another reality, a hellish reality. And the sound of my voice was echoing in it, speaking to the evil spirits here. I walked at a fast pace through the warehouse to the lobby. Ready to be away from this place, I walked through the lobby. My tools jingled at each other as I opened the lobby door and exited out into the bright day. I let my eyes focus again for a minute to adjust. I turned around and locked the door behind me. Finally done with this place until tomorrow. Didn't even look scary or hellish in the bright sun outside, just another empty building. A cold beer. The thought popped in my mind. A cold beer and maybe a pizza would be great at about this time. My stomach grumbled at the thought. I was famished. I had forgot to bring my lunch with me since I had started work that day and didn't eat anything. I piled my tools into the back of my pickup truck and got in. I started the truck up, turned the AC on to max, and revved the gas. I rolled down the windows to let the heat escape and waited till the AC started blowing cold air, then rolled the windows back up. I put the truck in reverse gear, turned my head around to back up, and saw a gas-powered forklift heading toward the back of my truck. It was going to hit me. It was going too fast. "Hey," I yelled. But the forklift operator couldn't hear me. A mere second before the forklift made an impact with my truck, it stopped. I threw the truck in park and threw my door open. "Hey, you crazy fool! You almost hit me!" I yelled at the driver. I could feel my face hot and red with anger. I wanted to fight this guy, give him a piece of my mind. He didn't even seem like he noticed my rage and had a small smirk on his face that even made me more angry. He had his shades on and a grisly face that needed a shave. He was sweaty and had some huge dirty hands. He wore some beat-up overalls over a white t-shirt. He swung his legs out off the forklift and stood up. The anger inside me vanished, and I became a mouse. This guy was huge. He towered over me at least 3 feet. I stood 6 feet tall. He walked toward me in some old dirty work boots. Hey, just a mistake, right? No damage done, right? No big deal, I said. The rage from earlier in my voice had dissipated. It sounded timid now. The guy didn't speak. He just kept walking toward me. I backed up a few steps closer to the cab of my truck. If I was going to get attacked, jumping into my truck and slamming the door seemed like the closest escape route. He stopped a few feet from me and just looked at me up and down. I waited for him to speak. It seemed like minutes had gone by. So, we good? If you could just move your forklift, I will be out. You're the new guy they hired to paint the inside of that warehouse, right? He finally spoke. He had a deep country voice. Yeah, I answered. What they got inside of there? He asked. He scratched at his head. Nothing. Why you ask? He ignored my question. You sure they got nothing in there? He asked again. Yeah, I'm sure. Why you keep asking me that? Oh, nothing. He said and pulled out a crumbled pack of Marlboro cigarettes. He pulled one out of the pack with his mouth and put the pack back in his pocket. He pulled out a Zippo lighter and flicked it open. He lit his cigarette and took a few puffs on it. I was just wondering, excuse me, damn thing's gonna kill me someday. I'm Ernie. He extended a huge, dirty, oily hand for a shake. I didn't want to shake his hand, but I didn't want to offend him, so I shook it. When I tried to release from his hand, he squeezed my hand tight. Hey! You wouldn't be lying to me now. His eyes looked dead into mine. Cigarette smoke came out through his lips and floated away above his head. Look, I told you, no! Now let go! He let go of my hand fast. I stumbled backward a few steps. I wasn't expecting him to let go so fast. Man, sorry. I had to make sure. Didn't want anything to happen to you, he said, and turned back to walk to his forklift. Yeah, whatever, I thought. This guy's a few beers short of a six-pack, but curiosity overcame my mind. Hey, I answered your question. Why don't you answer mine? I asked. He turned around and faced me again. Huh? What question? I asked you, why did you ask me if there was something inside that warehouse? Oh, well, probably nothing. I just wanted to know because the last two guys Bob hired to do the paint job never came back after the first day. I thought maybe they got something inside that warehouse that they don't want anybody to know about. The last two guys? I asked. Well, yeah, sure. What? You thought you were the first guy Bob hired to do the job? He said and let out a little laugh. The first guy that came, I think his name was George. I remember him good because he had some wild red hair. He went in with Bob the first day he got here and came running outside screaming and babbling nonsense for 10 minutes after he had gone in. He ran around the yard like some wild hyena, then took off down the road. He left his vehicle parked right over there and never came back for it.
Guess it didn't matter though, since the police found his body about 3 miles in a highway ditch that next day. Damn crazy fool probably ran out into the highway and got hit. Bob had his truck towed away 2 days after that. That's the darnest thing. I never seen anything like that in my life. Well, you can imagine the talk around the workplace. Bob was tight-lipped and wouldn't answer any question when we asked him. Just told us none of our business and keep doing our jobs. Well, what happened to that second guy? I asked. He came here, I said, about a month before you showed up. Nice fella, always smiling and greeting everybody. He stayed on the job for about 3 days. Then on the 4th day, he was a no-show. Nobody saw him around here again. 2 weeks went by after that. Then Johnny said something on the news, saw something on the news that night. I never even watched the news. I'm more of a beer and sports guy myself, but old Johnny in the warehouse watches the news faithfully every night. He comes into work the next day all excited like he had something to tell us. He waited till Bob was gone in his office and signaled for everybody to gather around him. He told us he saw something on the news last night about this painter. He said he was about to turn the TV off when he saw the guy's face pop up on the screen. Apparently, when the guy didn't come back to work that next day, it was because he had gone home and killed his entire family before blowing his brains out. Man, that's the damnest thing. I couldn't believe it when he told me. The guy didn't seem like that type, always friendly. But you know what they say these days? It's the one you least expect to go off and do some crazy stuff. I still don't believe him till I saw it in the paper that week. Wow, when that story came out, that's when the buzz really happened. Workers here was coming up with all kinds of crazy ideas what was in that warehouse. Alien spacecraft, shit like that. A couple of guys planned to break in a week later, but that's when Bob installed an alarm and squashed the idea from happening. He keeps telling us nothing was in there, nothing we had to worry ourselves about. So now you know. Wasn't trying to be rough with you. I apologize for that. I was in a daze, barely heard your last I was in a daze. I barely heard his last comment. So that was a catch. That's why Bob offered to pay me so much money for an easy, simple job. Now the truth, I thought. Hello? You there? Ernie snapped his fingers in front of my face. Yeah, I was just thinking to myself. Don't you go flaking out like those other two. You seem like a pretty okay guy. If you needed to talk about anything, let me know. Well, I'm off. I'll see you tomorrow, Ernie said, turned and walked back to his forklift. He backed it away from the rear of the truck. I could hear the familiar beep, beep, beep sound that machinery makes when you put it into reverse gear. I was still thinking, what if I lose it? What if I go crazy? I already felt like I was losing it earlier, right? What if I snapped and lost my sanity? A cold hand of fear and panic began to touch my spine again. Get a hold of yourself. You're too strong to lose your mind. Just bad nerves because of the change. A new job, a new environment, and it don't help hearing those spook stories told me. For all I know, he could have made up those stories. He might be jealous that I'm getting paid so much for a job he felt he could do and was trying to scare me off. Or could it happen, right? Good spook stories are hard for people to keep to themselves. If anyone dies or gets murdered, the story is so juicy and exciting to tell. This is human nature. Well, I'm not going to let some story, true or not, ruin the rest of my day. I had my date with Emily later on, and I had to go home and get ready. I drove home with my radio turned up loud. The loud music helped to tune out any bad thoughts. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I had forgotten all about Ernie's story and the job. I jumped out of my truck in a better mood and walked to my mailbox. Nothing but more bills, but they're all about to get paid off now. No worries. I walked to my house and opened the door. I walked in, grabbed a cold beer out the fridge and popped the top. I took 4 swallows. Man, that tastes good. My nerves started to relax even more as I drank more of the beer. I finished the entire can in a few more swallows and reached for the second one. I hesitated. I didn't want to get too plastered. What about my date with Emily? She wouldn't like it if I showed up drunk. Well, one more beer won't get me that drunk. I took the cold beer out the refrigerator and chugged it down. There, see? That wasn't bad. Not enough beer to get drunk, but just enough to take the edge off my bad nerves. I took off my clothes and headed to the bathroom to take a shower. 20 minutes later, when I was getting out of the shower, my phone rang. I grabbed a towel and wrapped it around my waist. I answered the phone on the 4th ring. It was Emily. I kind of had a feeling it was her before I even picked it up. Kind of a telephone intuition power. I remember reading about that somewhere. I don't remember where. Hey, Sam, baby. You didn't forget our date tonight. Nope. I was just getting ready for it right now. Well, I'm going to be ready in 30 minutes. I'll see you then, okay? She said. Yeah, no problem. I'll talk to you then, I said, and pushed the end button on the phone. I went to my room, pulled out a nice outfit, and placed it on the bed. A date with Emily is just what I needed, I thought. It would clear my head, and maybe I'd forget all the things I saw today. Had I really seen anything today? It almost seemed like earlier today was just a dream. Nothing had happened. I was just hired to do another paint job in an old warehouse basement. Nothing more. Yeah, that was it. I started whistling to myself as I finished getting ready for my date. I pulled my truck into Shirley's driveway I pulled my truck into Emily's driveway about 25 minutes later. I walked up her sidewalk to the front door and rang the doorbell. I could hear her footsteps as she approached the door and heard her unlock it. She opened the door and looked at me. We both smiled. Sam, right on time, she said. She opened her arms for a hug. I hugged her for a minute, then pulled back a few inches and kissed her. Her lips were soft and tasted like cherries. She opened her mouth slightly, and I flicked her tongue against mine. Then she pulled away from the kiss. Enough of that. We won't go nowhere if you keep that up, she said and giggled. Is that a bad idea, I said, and giggled a little back at her. Don't worry. We'll get to that later. I'm starved and ready to go eat. Are you hungry too? Man, I could eat a horse right now, I said. She came out the house and pulled out her keys. She locked the door behind her and we walked toward my truck holding hands. I walked her to the passenger door and opened it for her. She let go of my hand and climbed in. I shut the door behind her and walked around to my side and climbed in. So, how did it go? I'm so happy for you, Sam. My baby got him a J-O-B now. Funny, I said. We were sitting inside the booth of her favorite Italian restaurant we had drove to. I'm sorry, I should have told you that was the next chapter. So the next chapter starts off as, Sam and Emily at the Italian restaurant. I gotta clean this stuff up and edited all this yet. Chapter 3. Okay. She loved Italian food and she was still skimming the menu while she was talking. I don't know why she even looks at the menu anyway, since she orders the same food every time we come here. I like trying new things and will try different dishes every now and then on the menu, but Emily, nope, no sir. Same dish every time for her. But it still was kind of cute in a way watching her pretty eyes look up and down the menu, knowing she was going to pick the same thing. She liked to pretend and imagine she was unpredictable. different and mysterious, but at the end of the day, same old Emily. But that's what I loved about her. She put the menu down and the waiter walked over. "Are we ready to order?" he said with a smile. He was a young waiter, hardly 25, if I could guess, probably working his way through college, I thought. He didn't want to be stuck doing this job at 50. I don't think anybody would. Wait a minute. I was busy judging him so hard like most people do, and I realized in that moment I shouldn't be. My life wasn't that great either. I wish I wasn't in the spot I'm in, struggling to find jobs here and there, and thinking about his life is not great doing a waiter's job. I was thinking about these things so deeply I didn't even hear Emily finish placing her order and saying my name. I had tuned her out. Tuned her and the waiter out. Sam, are you listening? Yeah. I'm sorry. Did you order already? Yeah. You were not listening? She giggled. Okay, I'll have spaghetti and meatballs with a lot of bread on the side, I said. The waiter wrote down my order, and that will be all. Oh, what the heck? Let me get a bottle of some of your best wine as well. Sam? Are you sure you want to order that? What you mean? We are celebrating. I got a new job, remember? Oh, okay, I guess. The waiter took both menus and walked back toward the kitchen. Sam, I don't think you should order that. I mean, you just started this job and you might need to budget that money. It might be a while before you get another job, you know? I know, but relax, Emily, I said and took hold of her hand. I have a feeling that everything is about to work out just fine. After this job, I just feel like a lot of opportunities will open up for me. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like things are going to change. Well, I hope so. You know, I love you, Sam, she said. I love you too, Emily. I think you're crazy to stick with me through all my financial struggles. That's how I know you're a right woman for me. You never gave up on me through the bad times and through the good. And one day, when I get a permanent position doing work for a big company, I think we can be together. You know, marriage. I just want to make sure I can provide for not just myself, but you as well. You mean so much to me. She was blushing and smiling at me. It meant so much to her to hear me speaking from the heart. But I meant every word I said. This woman, Emily, did mean so much to me. I didn't want to lose her, and I would do anything to keep her in my life. We made small talk as we waited for the food. 20 minutes later, the food arrived at our table, steamingly hot. The food was so good. Maybe it was a long day at work that made it taste so good. Man, I was starving. I ate so much food, it felt like my belt was about to burst from my pants. Emily didn't hold back either. She ate a lot and finished almost all her plate of chicken Alfredo. I washed down the last part of my plate with the fine wine he had brought us up with the meal. Uh-oh, I felt a burp coming up. I had to stop it. It would be so rude if I belched out hot air with the smell of spaghetti and garlic bread onto Emily's face. I swallowed the burp back down my throat, hoping she didn't notice the gesture. She was too busy finishing her plate, and I didn't see the gesture. Man, that was so good. I swear, Mario's restaurant has the best chicken Alfredo here in the town, probably the whole country, she said. Don't get too full. You'll have no room for dessert, I said. I already think I don't have any room. I let out a little laugh. Yeah, me too. We both laughed. She pushed her plate away from her. The waiter must have seen her gesture from the corner of... Hold on. The waiter must have seen her gesture from the corner of his eye. He walked over. All done over here? He asked. Yes, thank you so much. It was delicious, Emily answered. Good. Would you like me to bring a dessert menu or anything else? Some more wine, possibly? No, I think we're stuffed. Just the check, please, I said. He picked up the plates from the table and returned to the kitchen area. My stomach is so full now. Hey, about earlier, that pic text you sent about your new job. A bolt of fear shot up my spine. I didn't know why, but I had forgotten and didn't want to talk about that. I didn't even want to think about the job now. What about? What about it? I stammered. Sam, are you okay? She asked. Yeah, why? I don't know, your face just went pale for a second. Was that spaghetti good? I hope they cooked the meat right. I'm fine, man. There's nothing wrong. The food was great. Okay, well, back to what I was saying, the pictex. Can we not talk about that now? I asked. The waiter stopped our conversation before she could reply. He brought over the check printout and placed it flip side on the table in front of me. Whenever you're ready, sir, he said and walked off to attend another table. I flipped it over expecting to see a $50 bill. Instead, I saw $150 on the ticket. The wine I had ordered was $100 bottle. Good God, man, fuck. I never paid $100 bottle of booze in my life. This was too much, man. Must be a mistake. Emily must have seen my eyes light up when I was looking at the ticket. What's wrong? What's the matter? Nothing. No, there is something wrong, Sam. Your eyes got big when you looked at the bill. Nah, man, nothing's wrong. I said, pulled out my wallet. I put my bank card down onto the tray with the ticket and signaled for the waiter to come back over. While I was in the process of doing this, Emily sneaked a peek at the bill receipt. Oh my God. Now I know. I told you, Sam, not to order that bottle. Wow. Look, it's nothing. We were celebrating, right? Yeah, but I know you don't have that much money, not until the job pays off. Here, let me pitch in on the bill, she said, and reached into her purse. No. Emily, no. I won't let you. That would not be gentlemanlike. Plus, I was the one who ordered it. Let me pay for it. Stop being stubborn, Sam. Really, it's no big deal. She rummaged through her purse and pulled out two $20 bills. I'm not taking that. I told you I'm paying for this bill, and that's final, I said. She shook her head, put her money back into her purse. Men, you men and your egos. That's what got us all into war all throughout history. You might be right about that one, I said. The waiter came and took the check with my card and went to run it. I was hoping and praying I had enough money on that account for that damage. It would be so embarrassing if I didn't. We sat there for a minute in silence when he returned. The card had cleared, thank God. And he had a pen and a paper slip for me to sign. I signed it, gave him a $10 tip, the highest tip I ever paid in my life. But I thought it'd be right I thought it wouldn't be right giving him a small tip on a $150 bill. It was 10% or was it 15%? Oh well, doesn't matter. We slid out the booth and exited the restaurant. I walked with my arm resting on around her shoulder toward my pickup truck. She spoke. Earlier, when I bought up that Pictex deal, I didn't know why you looked upset. Oh, I thought we wasn't gonna talk about that. I know, but it's been bugging me, kind of eating away at me, she said. Well, I don't know why. It was just a pic of the job I was doing. I should have sent another one and showed you how much work I did. I covered at least near almost 3/4 of the wall with new paint today. That's good, Sam, but I was trying to tell you, is that the text? Well, the picture was blurry. I couldn't see the images real clear. Were you shaking the camera when you took it? What? No, I was standing still and holding the phone right. That's not all, though. I had saved that picture, and here's the weirdest part, the thing that keeps bugging me. I stopped for a second, turned to her and asked, what? I don't know how to say this. You might think it's silly or tripping or something, she said. Emily, I'm not going to say nothing, just tell me. Well, at first, when you sent the picture earlier that day, it was blurry. But then when I looked at it later on, well, the picture was clear. I started laughing. It's not funny, Sam. I'm being serious. You must be joking. Come on, Emily. Pictures don't change like that, at least not in this reality. I laughed a little more. Fine, go on then. Laugh at me. Never mind. I said anything about it. But what? I asked. Well, when I got to see the picture, I mean, when it was clear, Sam, the artwork was incredible. There's no way some stoned out teenagers did that. Now you're doing it again. Did they put something in your food or something, like some magic mushrooms or something? Look, I'm stop talking. Just take me home, she said, getting angry. I noticed her flushed face with anger. She was really seeming sincere, but I couldn't make myself believe her. Yes, the eyes and the job had bothered me, but I pushed that back into the back of my mind in a state of denial. Sometimes denial is the way a mind tries to deal with terror and unexplained unknown. I knew deep down that was what I was doing. I convinced myself that was nothing, just another paint job. Okay, I'm sorry, okay? You just sounded that believable right now. You're just not sounding that believable right now, I said to her. I knew if I didn't clean up this mess up, the night would be over. I would go home alone with no sex. Of course, I didn't want that. I didn't want her to know that was my intention. You're just saying that because I'm mad now, she said with a pouty face. I stopped her from walking, looking dead in her eyes, and lied. No, I'm serious. It was wrong of me to laugh at you. I'll listen to you. She searched my eyes for any indication I was lying. Man, she was smart. Please. I hope that was convincing enough. I saw her eyes turn from probing to acceptance. She had bought it. Man, ooh, that was a close one. I'm getting pretty good at this. I felt a tinge of guilt deep down. I hated lying to Emily. I loved her a lot, but if I hadn't, well, you know the rest. Okay, she smiled. I was so excited about the photo, I sent it to a colleague of mine who specializes in art and photography. And you did what? Why did you? My voice was shocked. What's wrong with you? Why are you raising your voice? Emily, I sent that one picture just to you and asked you to keep it between us. Now somebody else knows about it. I trusted you. I know, Sam. I'm sorry. I feel kind of bad because I promised you. But that's before I saw how detailed and incredible the mural is. It's not a mural, damn it. My voice was angry now. It's just some kids who did graffiti. Look, Sam, I don't like your tone of voice with me. It's not just graffiti. It's too detailed to be just simple graffiti. Whatever. Look, I had a stressful day. I'm happy I found some work, but I don't care to talk about it. I said. What, Sam? I never seen you like this. Did the painting scare you or something? I mean, why you tripping? What, me scared? Never. I laughed, but it was a fake laugh. It sounded hollow. Emily could tell it was a fake laugh too, and I saw concern in her eyes. Well, I'm not trying to ruin your night, and I'm glad you found some work. It's just sad, kind of a waste, that you have to paint over that artwork. I mean, it's very creepy and very dark. But still, I mean, the painting looks alive, and it's so detailed. I started looking angry again, and she sensed it. You're right, though. If you don't want to talk about it, we won't. The friend of mine, he said he won't share the picture with anyone, so don't worry, it's over with, she said. No more about it. The rest of the night and discuss other things. But at certain times, even after we had made love, I could tell she wanted to talk about it. Kind of could sense it pestering her mind like a small fork poking at it. I didn't care and I ignored it. She was right. Even though I was in denial, I was scared of it. Hell, I was terrified. Those basement wall and those eyes, those evil, sick, horrible, alien eyes looking at me. I can't wait until this job is done and the wall will be nothing but freshly painted, boring wall. Sleep finally came as I laid in Emily's bed next to her. That night I had a terrible dream, a horrible nightmare. But when I woke the next day, I couldn't remember it. Emily next chapter, Emily and her colleague. Now you said, who sent you the picture? He asked. Emily. She was a friend of mine in college. Uh-huh. What? No, nothing like that. We're just friends and stay in touch after school. Look, Robert, I don't care about your friends in college or a picture that you sent that No, I'm sorry. This is Flash 2. I should finish editing this. This is not with Sam and Emily. This is a flash to Robert, which Emily sent the picture to. And Robert has a wife. Robert's wife. Now you said, who sent the picture? Robert's wife's asked. Emily, man, she's just a friend of mine in college. Uh-huh. What? No, nothing like that. We're just friends and we stay in touch after school. Look, Robert, I don't care about your friends in college or a picture they sent you on the phone. It's time for dinner and I've set the table. Go get the kids. Okay, honey, but the picture had wonderful art in it. She said her boyfriend is hired to paint over it and destroy it. It's a shame. You know, I majored in art, so this kind of stuff bothers me. Well, don't get upset. You can't save every piece of artwork in the world. I know, Robert said, and left the kitchen. He stayed with his wife and 2 children in a small house. He walked to the children's playroom and opened the door. He had a daughter that was 4 and a son who was 9. His son was playing video games and was glued to the television, determined to beat whatever villain he was fighting. His daughter was sitting on the floor playing with her toys. She looked up when he opened the door, but his son never turned his attention away from the game he was playing. It's time for dinner, you two. Go wash your hands and come to the dining room. Okay, Daddy, his daughter replied, and she dropped the toy in her hand and got up. She walked past him out the door to the bathroom to wash her hands. His son hadn't moved. Jonathan. What? Are you listening to a word I said? And it's what, sir? Dad, I'm almost done with this level, he said. Now, are no more video games for you this week, Robert said in a firm voice and turned around and walked back to the dining room. He was giving his son a small benefit of a doubt to turn off that game and do what he had said. If not, will he do what he said? If not, well, would he do what he said? He would. He walked into the kitchen right as his wife was putting on a table a casserole dish. Kids these days, I don't know why they're so addicted to those video games. Now, Robert, you probably had something you were addicted to when you was young. No, not really. Well, I like to read a lot. See, so you had an addiction to that. Maybe you're right, but I don't think it was that bad. I mean, do you need any help with anything, or is the table ready? Robert asked. Now it's all finished, she said. She sat down in a normal chair. Robert sat down in his place next to her, and they waited for their children. He broke the silence first. About that picture from that pic text that Emily sent me, I was talking about. Oh, you still on that? I don't even care no more, she said. Well, I gotta say, the artwork done in the picture, I mean, it was just a cell phone picture, but it was incredible and full of detail. What was it a picture of? It was a picture of a mural or a painting. It covered a huge wall and was made entirely of eyes and teeth. Wow, that sounds kind of creepy. Yeah, it was kind of scary, and just looking at it had sent a chill up my spine. But I gotta say, whoever was the artist must have spent hours on it. I mean, the detail he must have spent making sure every eye looked real and alive. It's breathtaking. It's almost as if the eyes are staring at you or through you. Come on, Robert. Seriously, she said. A small smirk was on her face. She wasn't believing him. He knew this. Now, Sarah, you know I majored in art, and I know what I'm talking about. No need for you to be skeptical. Okay, whatever. You're right. Go on. I think this art has to be way older than I can imagine. Maybe 15th century. I know, it's impossible, but I haven't seen something this detailed since some of the old painting of that era. Robert, how can some 15th century art appear on a modern day wall? And you said the picture was taken where? She said her boyfriend had taken it. He was paid to paint over it. It was called graffiti. Can you believe that? Graffiti? It was painted on the basement wall of an old warehouse. See, that's what I'm saying. I know I don't know how much, I know I don't know much about your work, but there's no way some 15th century artist painted a mural on the wall of an old basement, she said. I know that, Sarah, but I can't believe it myself. Robert said. Let's talk about it some other time. See, here comes the kids for dinner. His daughter came in first. Of course, since she had left to wash her hands first, followed by his son behind her. They both took their seats and looked at their parents. Who wants to say grace? Robert asked. Oh, me? Me. I want to, Daddy. I remember the words, please. His daughter asked. She was holding up her hands in the air even though she was not in school. Okay, you can say it this time, Robert said. His daughter smiled and clasped her hands together. She bowed her head and closed her eyes in prayer. Everyone else followed, with Robert closing his eyes last. Bless, O Father, these gifts we are about to receive. In your name, Jesus, amen. Amen. Well, that wasn't the exact words, but that was close enough, Robert said to her, and smiled. She took his approval and smiled back. Robert could see her approval meant a lot to her. She was a good kid even though she talked back sometimes. Robert knew deep down inside she looked up to him. That's what made it so terrible what happened next. They all sat quietly at first, passing around dishes and serving portions of food on their plates. Robert's son was the first to speak after everyone had gotten their food. Oh, Mom, you won't believe this. What, Jeremy? And remember, don't talk with food in your mouth. I got an A on my science test yesterday. Can you believe that? He said with excitement in his voice. That's good. I'm proud of you. You must have studied real hard. Because I remember your teacher had told me you were struggling in science, Sarah said and smiled at him. I did, Mom. I really did. I stayed up for 2 hours the other night studying my science book instead of playing my video games. That's so good, honey. Robert, aren't you proud of your son? Robert, what's the matter? Robert was staring at his food. A look of horror, sheer terror was on his face. It was as if he was looking at a ghost. His face had turned pale and white. He was frozen, couldn't respond to his wife even if he wanted to. What's wrong with him? What is he seeing? She thought as she followed his gaze. All she saw was a tuna casserole sitting on his plate with some fresh rolls and green beans. Robert, you're scaring the kids. Robert, say something. He heard her, but she was far, far away, and her voice was fading. He finally looked up from the food. His eyes were haunted, but it wasn't him. It wasn't Robert no more. It was just a shell of the man she loved. He looked like something strange, not the man she remembered. That scared her so much that the first time she had said "I do" to the man she had said she would love forever, she was afraid. Afraid for her life and the life of her children. What she saw in his eyes was something she had never seen before. Something evil. There was no love there, only death and darkness. The children sensed the change as well. "Daddy? What's wrong, Daddy?" his daughter asked. She was scared too. Her dad had never scared her, but this wasn't her dad sitting here no more. It looked like her dad, but it didn't feel like her dad. "Daddy, I'm scared. Say something, Dad," his son said, echoing his sister. Robert never spoke. He pushed his chair back from the table and walked out the dining room toward the bedroom. Sarah wanted to get up. She wanted to follow him. She wanted to find out what was wrong, but she couldn't get up. She was still scared of what she had seen, the man she had loved. What had just happened? She sat there looking at her children. They looked back at her, fear in their eyes and concern. And a minute later, bang! A gunshot with deafening roar came from their bedroom. She and her children screamed in shock. She jumped up from her chair and darted down the hallway toward the bedroom. Oh God, please, let him be okay, she thought. But she knew, she felt deep down inside that he wasn't okay. There was nothing was going to be okay from that day forward. Her intuition was right as she reached the bedroom and saw slumped on the floor in a pool of blood her husband with a shotgun barrel sticking in his mouth, the back of his head open with blood and gore splattered on the wall behind him. He had killed himself with his shotgun he had bought 5 years ago for home protection. She felt the world around her sway. Oh God, please don't faint. Please don't let the children see this. But it was too late. The dark spots grew into her vision, and she passed into the darkness. 10 minutes before, Robert had heard his son finishing saying grace and loading his plate up with his wife cooking. He was hungry and felt his saliva build up in his mouth, and he looked down at his food. My wife, Sarah, God, she looked good. She could cook good, he thought. He forgot about the pictures of the eyes he had seen earlier. All his mind was focused on was filling his stomach with some of his wife's good cooking. It smelled so good, and he knew it would taste just right. He reached for his fork, ready to scrape up some of the hot, tasty casserole into his mouth. He poked the fork into the casserole, and that's when he saw it. A single small eyeball buried inside the casserole on his plate. An eyeball. An eyeball? It can't be. I must be seeing things. He moved the food around, uncovering it. The eye looked at him, its evil glare looking up at him from the food. Robert felt fear so deep inside it was almost sheer panic, but he couldn't move. He was terrified, but he couldn't speak. The eye just stared at him, burning him with this horrible, evil vision. He felt its glare piercing his heart, destroying his logical mind, turning it insane. He knew that it was the end. He could not fight it. Only escape was death. The eye blinked once, then twice. So alien, so sick and alien, he thought. He heard his wife calling far away in another world, a world of logic and reason. But he was no part of that world no more. This was one of those eyes, the one from the picture. That was his last thought before he slipped into the darkness, never to return. And that's the end of chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4 of The Basement. I'll finish probably with the conclusion when I get around to it. The Basement Eyes, chapter 4. I'm gonna miss you today. You leaving so early? Shirley said as she rushed over to give me a hug and a kiss goodbye at her front door. You know the early bird gets the worm, and I gotta make sure I set a good impression on the new boss. I said back to her, my hand on the front doorknob, my other arm wrapped around her as she embraced me. Well, have a good day, okay? And don't work too hard. She leaned in and planted a small kiss on my lips. She pulled back away from me, and I could see the love she had for me sparkle in her eyes as she looked at me. I didn't know this would be the last time I would see that sparkle. I didn't know that this would be the last time I would hold her in my arms and tell her I loved her. If I could only live in this moment, forever in time. I opened her door and walked out. She stood in the entrance for a minute, and I waved goodbye to her as I got into my truck. She waved back at me, and I started the truck up. It rumbled to life, and exhaust smoke sputtered from the tailpipe. I put it in reverse and backed out of her driveway onto the street. I drove away from her house, happy and content, feeling of bliss, no worry on my mind, at least for the time. I drove back to my house to take a quick shower and change into my work clothes. I didn't have much time to have a good breakfast, so I ate a piece of toast and made some quick instant coffee. I hated instant coffee, but I didn't have much time to brew up some fresh coffee. I had to go to work. I left my house about 30 minutes later, refreshed and ready for the day's work. It took me about another 15 minutes to drive to work. I pulled into the job site and saw Bob standing outside the warehouse waiting. What was he here for? Or was he waiting on me? I did get here early, so what was wrong? He looked a little mad. Or am I just tripping, seeing things? Stop overthinking the situation, I told myself. He's probably just here to check on my work I finished. He's probably here to congratulate me on some work I finished yesterday. I'm damn near finished half the job yesterday. I was working so fast and hard trying to cover all those blasted eyes. Those evil blasted eyes. I pulled my truck next to him and turned off the engine. I wasn't tripping. I could tell he did look upset, agitated. He didn't even wait for me to get out of the truck. He stomped over to me as I opened the door. Sam, I trusted you, Sam. He said. What? What you mean? I asked. I thought you was working yesterday when I hired you, he said. I was working. Did you see the job I did? I know I didn't finish it, but I damn near did most of it. What are you talking about, Sam? He asked, the anger in his voice rising. You did nothing. And if you expect me to pay you for just sitting around all day, you are wrong. I hired you off the word of a friend and thought you was reliable. Wait a minute. You stop right there, I said. I was beginning to get angry. I knew I had worked yesterday painting the wall. What was this man saying? That I didn't do nothing all day? I didn't like accusations like that, especially when I knew they were not true. Accusations like that just makes a person angry. Now, Mr. Pinch, I did work yesterday, and I did start the job you asked me to do. Doing what exactly? What is your definition of working? Because from what I saw, you did nothing. Look, I know you're my new boss and you hired me for this job, but I don't appreciate your tone of voice or how you talking to me right. I don't give a shit what you don't appreciate. I have a deadline. I need to get this warehouse ready, and you're doing nothing helps me nothing.
I'm not going to pay you for any time you did yesterday. That hit a nerve with me. What? What do you mean you're not going to pay me? I worked over 8 hours yesterday. Like I said, doing what? He asked. Painting the damn basement, my job. Look, Sam, I went down there this morning to check on your work. There's nothing done. You're crazy. You must be blind. Don't call me crazy and stop yelling at me. Look, I'm going to give you one more chance. And this thing is already not working out too well. You on thin ice, he said and pointed a finger in my face. He glared at me with his finger pointing in my face. I was furious. I wanted to slap that finger out of my face and deck him one. Deck him one good right in the jaw. I hated being called a liar. If he thinks he can weasel way out of paying me for my work, he got another thing coming. That's it. He's trying to make me seem like I'm crazy and I didn't do any work, so he won't pay me. Yeah, that's it. You fucking bastard. You cheap fucking bastard. And to think I trusted you, I thought. Bob turned and marched away toward his office. I watched him, still furious. He wasn't going to get away with this. I'll make sure of that. He was going to pay me for my work. But a foreign small thought entered into the back of my mind. What was he talking about? I was shaking. I was so mad. But I was curious and afraid. What was he talking about? I did paint and work yesterday. Do I have to question my own sanity, my own mind? I told the voice to shut up. I'll just prove it to myself and go down to the basement. Then when I see my work, I'll go get Bob, make him look at it with me. That way that bastard can't wiggle out of paying me. And if he makes up some lie like he can't see nothing, well, I'll get some other witnesses. I walked to the warehouse entrance door and used the key I was given. The warehouse interior was dark and gloomy. If Bob had been here, like he said, he must have shut off the lights when he walked out. I reached for the light switch and found it. The overhead light slowly cycled through, bringing light to the interior. I walked down the side back wall heading toward the basement, my footsteps making a small echo like it did before. The first time I was in here, it seemed creepy, but this time I wasn't afraid. I was angry. It's funny how that little thing, anger, can wash away any fears you have. I reached the basement door. I opened it and switched on the lights, ready to feel contentment, ready to know I was right. I wasn't crazy, and I know I had work painting yesterday. The lights were slow to come on, but they eventually did. What? I yelled into the basement. My yell echoed eerily. What the fuck? I saw the wall with the eerie, scary eyes. I saw my equipment placed around the floor next to the wall, but nothing was painted over. The eyes were there, but no paint was done to cover them. My anger turned to fear, then to panic. Was I going crazy? Was I going insane? That's the worst feeling a man can feel when he has to question his own mind. He can no longer trust his own mind. I felt that now. I knew I painted this wall with this fucking eyes. These fucking stupid fucking eyes. I hated them. They looked at me. They were laughing at me. Those fucking stupid eyes can't laugh at you, I told myself. But I could feel them. I could feel them laughing at me. Fuck you, I screamed at them. I raced down the steps and grabbed an open paint bucket. I slung it at the wall and it hit the eyes, splattering paint on them. The laughter ceased. The eyes that seemed alive the second earlier looked like nothing now. Just some painted eyes on the basement wall. I slumped to the floor. The anger had left me, but the fear crept back slowly like a cold hand on my neck. I laughed. I didn't know why I laughed, but I did. My laughter echoed and sounded insane. Pull it together, Sam. Pull it together, I thought. They're going to put you in a crazy house soon if you don't pull it together. You didn't work yesterday, a voice said in my head. You was just checking over the job, making sure you had the right supplies to finish it. Yeah, that was it. You always do that. You have to make sure you have enough supplies to finish a job. You're not going crazy. Denial. Denial always works for a situation the rational mind can't come terms with. Those fucking eyes. They seem to hear my thoughts as they look down at me. Or were they looking at me? They were not looking at me. That's impossible. But they were looking at me. Looking at me slumped on the floor, staring inside of me, staring inside my soul. No, no. You just stressed out and imagining things. Get it together. Look, okay, maybe Bob was right. I didn't do anything yesterday. That just means I got double work today. No problem. I might just finish the whole job today. Then I will call Bob down here and he can see. That fucking bastard can see. I did my job. I did my fucking job, I shouted at the eyes. They said nothing back. Just stared at me. Stared with their fucking stupid gaze. They will pay for this. I'll erase all of them from existence with my paint. I walked over to the paint buckets and opened one. Time to go to work. Shirley closed the door after Sam drove off in his truck. She was worried about him. She didn't know why, but she was. He seemed different. Trouble. Not the same Sammy she was used to, the one she loved so much, the one that she had made her laugh and feel so happy inside. It seemed like since yesterday something had changed. Ever since he took that job, he seemed distant, like he was hiding something from her, something buried deep down inside. He will be all right, a voice spoke in her head. He's just stressed out because he got a new job. He'll be okay soon. Just a change. He has to adapt to the change. That was it. Just a change of a new job. Plus he had been stressing for a long time because he had no work, and now he does. That can upset anyone. Give him time. Give him time. He will be back to the old Sam. Old Sam that was fun, that made her laugh. They had made love the night before, and she had faked an orgasm. Of course, he would never know. She would never tell him. She felt kind of guilty about this, but she was too busy being worried about him that night to enjoy sex. What about the painting? She thought. Her thoughts skipped quickly from worrying about Sam to the excitement, almost as if she had forgotten about Sam totally. The painting, man, it was incredible. It's a shame that it's going to be destroyed. All those details that went into those eyes, all that artwork. I wonder if Robert had a look at the picture I sent. Maybe he could tell me more about it. I'm going to have to call him, that's it. I'm going to call him later on today and talk to him about it. She thought about Robert, the guy, her colleague, that she sent the picture to. That thought made her happy. She walked toward the bathroom in the pink robe she had put on earlier when Sam left. She needed a good hot shower. She would feel better when she had washed off the smell of all last night's sex and feel clean and fresh. She came into the bathroom and took off her robe. She was naked underneath. She hung the robe up on a hook on the back of her bathroom door. She reached open up the shower curtain and turned on the water for the shower. She let the water run and looked at herself in the mirror. She still looked pretty good for her age. Her breasts still firm, didn't sag that much, and she still had her curves. She wasn't too fond of her small belly she was developing. You just need to stay away from them carbs, she thought. But I love those sweets, and that was her weakness. She wasn't a big drinker, but she loved sweets. She tried to fight the weight gain by just exercising, but just exercising doesn't work as you get older. You have to monitor your intake every day. No more of those fun days when you was young and you could eat anything and gain no weight. She sat there for a minute and sucked in her stomach, trying to look like her old self before she had gained some belly fat. Then she saw something. Or Did I see something? She thought. The mirror was beginning to steam up from the shower, but she saw it. At the bottom right corner of the mirror. The steam hadn't covered the corner yet, and it was there. A very small eye. It can't be, she thought. Curiosity overrode any fear she had. She reached for a small hand towel and rubbed the mirror where the eye was, clearing any steam away from it. Was it a smudge? It can't be an eye. I'm seeing things. But it was an eye. An eye looking up at her. It looked up at her and then down. She felt ashamed. She was naked. It was looking at her naked body. It was looking down at her vagina. It was getting horny, excited. How? How can an eye be looking at you and getting sexually stimulated? How can an eye even be on your mirror? Did she do some drugs the night before? Was she seeing things? How is this possible? She rubbed the eye again with the towel, hoping in her mind that when she stopped rubbing, the eye would disappear. It was just a smudge. It's not an eye. You can't be seeing an eye in your mirror. That would make you crazy, and you know you're not crazy. Yeah, you have had a little OCD about cleaning and other things, but you're not crazy to where you're seeing things, she thought. But there it was after she stopped rubbing. One ugly eye. One ugly, evil eye. Violating her. Raping her naked body with his vision. She felt hot. Its glare made her hot, so hot. Run, she thought. Run now. The thought was so loud, it almost shattered her mind. The thought entered her mind, but she couldn't move. She was paralyzed. The eye was stripping her of all of her strength. Her body was limp, frozen in one place. Then she felt something. Her arm moved. But she wasn't moving it. Or was she? She saw in horror as her arm moved for a pink razor on the bathroom sink. What am I doing? Stop it! Stop it! She thought. But her arm didn't respond to her. The eye was controlling it now. Her hand grasped the razor and slowly began to bring it up to her neck. A tear rolled down her cheek. As it grew closer to as the razor grew closer to the exposed skin of her neck. The razor touched the skin of her neck. It felt cold. Oh God, please make it stop. Then her hand pushed the razor harder. Blood poured out from an open wound. The eyes watched, but it looked entertained, like it was laughing at her. How can an eye be laughing? But it looked intrigued and excited at the sight of her blood coming from her throat. Please, stop. Just make it quick. If I'm gonna die, make it quick, she thought. As if the eye could hear her thoughts, the razor slowed its push. The pain began to come, slow and terrible. The razor was slow, cutting across her neck, not fast and quick, slow and painful. Blood was everywhere now. Her hand that held the razor was trembling. Her head began to roll back as her jugular vein was sliced. Blood shot out from her throat onto the mirror. The eye was splattered for a second with her blood, but it blinked and cleared its vision. It watched as Shirley breathed her last breath. She made a gargling sound and grasped for air, but could not get any. She felt her body slump to the bathroom floor, now covered in her own blood, and into darkness.
It was close to 5 p.m. and 5 p.m. again, quitting time. I'd done more painting today than the day before, and instead of half the job finished, almost 3/4 of the wall was painted now. I stood back for a minute admiring my work. Wow, maybe that asshole Bob will shut his mouth now. I'll make sure he sees this today so he can know I've been working hard. I wanted to finish the whole job, but I was tired. My arms felt like putty and burned from all the work that they had done. All I could think about was going home and having a nice cold beer, maybe calling Shirley and spend some time with her if I felt up to it. Thinking about Shirley made me feel good inside, happy. The thought of her kept the bad out. All day I could feel it, something strange as I worked, something in the back of my mind, a bad feeling down here in the air or something. Those stupid eyes. Almost felt that every time I took my vision of them to get more paint, I could feel them looking at me with their evil glare and their sharp teeth. Well, when I looked back up, ready to paint more, they were not alive or looking at me, just graffiti. I'm cleaning up, I thought. I left the basement out the stairs. I turned the lights off and took my tools. I had one mission on my mind, Bob Pinch. He was going to see the work I had done. I walked outside. The sun was bright. It burned my eyes for a minute. I had to let them adjust. I didn't know why it seemed so dark inside that warehouse. When you came outside, it was like super light. I started to walk toward the office building, but stopped halfway there. I spotted my target. Bob Pinch was standing near the loading docks. He was talking to the forklift operator. Looked like it was the same guy that talked to me yesterday. Was it? Yes, it is, I thought. Almost as if both felt me staring at them. They both stopped talking and looked at my direction. Bob Pinch said something to the driver and he nodded his head. He climbed back on his forklift and drove away. He glanced back at me one time before he turned the corner of the warehouse. That look. I didn't like that look. Don't know why. Bob walked toward me. He had an arrogant smug on his face. I hope you've been working today, he said sarcastically as he walked up to me. I ignored the sarcasm. That's exactly why I came over here to see you, to show you that I've been working. I want you to see firsthand the proof. Well, lead on. And it better be good. He followed me back toward the warehouse. All of a sudden I felt almost faint. Sorry. I saw the warehouse in front of me. It looked alive, like it was breathing. It wasn't a building, it was a creature, an evil creature. But just like that, the feeling passed again. The vertigo was gone and forgotten. I reached the outer door and opened it. Bob followed me behind me. We walked quietly toward the basement, our footsteps echoing. I reached the door first and twisted the doorknob to open. Like I said, this better be good, I heard Bob speak up behind me. I turned back to him and saw movement behind his shoulder. That ugly rat. It was in the corner watching us. I hadn't forgot about it. I just forgot the poison that I was supposed to bring. What? Bob asked, turning around to follow my gaze, but the rat had darted into his rat hole before he was able to see it. Nah, nothing. Look, Mr. Pinch, you won't be disappointed. I hope so, he said. I turned back and opened the door to the basement. I couldn't believe it. The strength in my legs left me. I almost fell down the stairs. The wall had no paint on it. Nothing. Impossible. Nothing. I had painted all day. I did my job. I know it. My sanity. I was losing my mind. I couldn't trust my mind. Is this some kind of joke? He asked. Sorry, I just lost my spot for a minute. Is this some kind of joke? What have you been doing down here all day? I don't understand. Then anger rose from Bob's voice. Look, I'm sorry, Sam, but you're fired. I needed a job done, and you're not doing nothing. I heard him, but his voice was distant. Those eyes, those fucking eyes, they were looking at me, laughing at me. I can't believe it. Those eyes. What about the eyes? Look, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. Pack your things up here and leave. I have a deadline to have this warehouse ready, and I hired you thinking that you could do the job. Obviously, I was wrong. Hey, wait a minute. Where are you going? You leaving that quick? I pushed by Bob and ran. I couldn't be here no more. I ran toward the exit. Vision of the eyes flashing through my mind caused me panic and fear. I had to run from this place and never come back. I didn't care about my tools. I didn't care about Bob or what he would think. My only instinct was to run. Maybe if I could run far away, I could escape from this horrible dream. I reached my truck and jumped in. I was breathing hard and shaking. I grabbed the keys and started the engine. The truck revved to life. I threw the gear in reverse, backed up as fast as I could, threw the gear into drive, and pulled out of the parking lot, tires spinning. I was going to escape this hell, escape and never turn back. I reached my house 20 minutes later. I was speeding to get there. I didn't care if a cop had chased me. I wouldn't have stopped. I just wanted to get to my house, get inside and close everything off, block out the world and be to myself. I couldn't deal with anything right then. I got out of my truck, still shaking all over it. I could barely hold my keys right to unlock the front door. I was finally able to fit a key in the slot and go in. Safe. I'm safe now. I can relax. I can figure it out. Just calm down and think. Figure out what is going on. I walked toward my bathroom. What is happening to me? What is going on? I reached the bathroom and yanked open the medicine cabinet. All I had was aspirin and some Tums inside. I needed something to calm me down. I opened the aspirin, swallowed 5 of them with some water. I know you're not supposed to take 5, but I didn't care. I scooped the water from my hand in the sink. Oh God, what is going on? I know I had painted. I'm not crazy. You're not crazy, I told myself as I looked in the mirror. But I looked crazy. My own eyes looked haunted and afraid. Looking at them made me think about those other ones. Those eyes on the wall. Those eyes. Make them stop. They are everywhere. I can't escape from their glare, their sick, evil, demonic glare. I tried to close my own eyes, but I could see them looking at me in the darkness of my eyelids, those alien eyes piercing my soul, burning me inside. I can't stand it. Make them stop, please. I opened my eyes and looked again in the bathroom mirror. They were everywhere on the mirror, blinking and looking at me. Get away from me, I yelled. Leave me alone. What have I done to you? No answer. They never was any answer. They just stared at me with their madness. I made a fist with my hand, slammed it against the mirror, shattering it to pieces. There! Now you're dead. Now you're gone, I screamed. My voice was hysterical, on the brink of madness. I could feel my hands become warm. I know I was hurt. I know I was bleeding, but I couldn't feel the pain. The eyes is all I could think of now. I began to laugh. I didn't know why, but I began to laugh. You can't get me anymore, I yelled and laughed harder. Ha ha. I laughed until my lungs began to hurt, and I could barely breathe, and then I began to cry. Oh my God, I'm losing it. I'm going insane. Oh my God, this can't be happening. Get a hold of yourself, I said. I slumped down to the floor. Glass shards were scattered all around from the broken mirror. I should have never took the job. I should have listened to my feelings, I told myself, in between my sobs. But as if the eyes, those fucking eyes, those eyes that ruined my life, were listening, they almost spoke, or did they speak? A dark voice, a whisper. You're mine now, Sam. There is no escape. No, 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 I yelled in anguish. I felt something on my arm. It was hot and slimy. I looked down at my arm. No! An eyeball was growing into my flesh. An eyeball was ripping open a hole in my arm, peeking out.
It slowly turned its alien vision up toward my face. It burned. Oh God, it burned so bad. I could smell my flesh sizzling, burning deep, burning to the bone. It hurt so bad. I couldn't stand it. I reached for a large shard of glass on the floor and cut at the eye on my arm. The shard made it bleed. The eye was bleeding now. You die! I hurt you now, I screamed at it. I cut more into the flesh, not knowing I was cutting my own arm, tearing my own skin off. Then another eye began to tunnel its way up. It was on the back of my left hand. My hand sizzled and smoked as the eye grew larger. It burned just as bad as the first eye. I cut at it too. I had to stop them. They wouldn't get me. No. They wouldn't get me. I won't let you. I won't let you. The eye began to bleed as I stuck the shard deep into it. It made a small popping, gushing sound. You die too, I howled at it. But no, there is another one. They were coming up everywhere, on my arms, on my hands, oh my God, on my legs too, everywhere, burning so bad and coming up everywhere. I heard in the distance, or did I hear anything? I couldn't trust my mind now. I couldn't believe anything it said existed in this reality. A loud noise and wood splinter, a door cracking open. My front door was getting kicked in. I must have heard someone knocking earlier. I did, yes I did, or did I? I heard a man yell, almost like a voice of a dream. Police! Then I saw 3 men enter into the bathroom. They grabbed me, made me drop my glass shard I had held in my hand. No, I'm gonna need that. I tried to grab it, but they wouldn't let me. They yanked me up and wrestled my hands behind my back. I was screaming and yelling, but I couldn't hear myself. I felt them put handcuffs on my wrists. You can't do it. The eyes, I have to stop them. They're everywhere now, burning on me. Cut them out. Please cut them out. Next chapter. Our next patient is a very violent one with suicidal tendencies. We have to keep him sedated all day long. He suffers from an extreme form of paranoid schizophrenia. He always has to stay in a straitjacket if he's conscious. Apparently he tries to bite himself and scratch his skin off, claiming that there are eyes all over him. We've tried every kind of medication with no positive results, and electroshock therapy does not help either. All we can do is make his suffering a little less painful with Thorazine. I don't know how he became this way. The police brought him to us and they informed us that he murdered his girlfriend. It's very sad and a very grim story. Hopefully one day he'll be better, moving on. Bob meets the new painter at the warehouse. It's not a hard job. Easy, really. Just need you to paint the wall of the basement of the warehouse next door. I'll pay you. Good money for it. The last couple guys, well, let's just say they had problems doing the job. Or working at all. I guess they was lazy, I guess. So you have some good references here, I see. Let's walk over. And you can see what I need done. Did you see that? What? That rat, man. It was a big and nasty rat. It looked at me. Paul. You said your name was Paul, right? I can assure you, we had pest control out here last week. There's no rats in here. Now come down to the basement. Basement Eyes, written 2012, note from the author, David Myers, Austin, Texas. You know, this was a little short story I wrote. My novel's on Amazon, Lost in Nowhere. I'm still working on a compilation of a lot of different short stories. This was just one of them. You know, I mean, it was pretty high end, like nail biter through the whole thing. And I could tell, like, from me reading it, that I'm all about climax through the whole damn story, keeping it right at the top of the excitement line, So that's where I need to tone some of my writing. I can tell, like, you can't have everything at level 10 through a whole story, which is what I like because it keeps you just reading the story, reading the story, reading the story, and go through it real fast. But you got to have a kind of like a build up, start at level 1 for so many pages and build up to level 10. So, but looking back at this, is a good little story about eyes and basements and some pretty scary stuff. So, if you enjoyed it, I hope you did. If you want to buy a novel, Amazon, click in Mr. David Myers as a search. Lost in Nowhere, Years to Revenge, 2 novels up there. One's $4.99. One's $7.99. Mr. David Myers. My novel's Lost in Nowhere on Amazon, and also Years to Revenge. It's like a screenplay. If you want to read, it's kind of like gangster. It's not as any horror. It's more like a gangster mafia kind of screenplay. So check me out, man. And appreciate it if you listen to all this. All right, bye.